Whenever you have a major goal, whether it be for your life, your job, your hobby, whatever it is, it's always important to have an action plan, some kind of game plan to help you figure out what the things that need to happen to move on to the next step. And more importantly, prevent you from just wandering around aimlessly, hoping for things to happen and hoping that you somehow stumble upon accomplishing your goal. Buying a house is absolutely no different. The only problem there really is when it comes to making a game plan, timeline, action plan, whatever you want to call it, is the people that are there that are meant to help you create one are commission based, meaning that they are going to make a living based on you buying your house as soon as possible. That means you're going to get people that are going to be very avoidant. They're not going to be as willing to help you if you're looking to buy a year from now, or quite frankly, they might adjust that game plan to be a lot quicker and sooner than you're actually comfortable with. So in today's video, this is going to be the ultimate guide to help you create your own home buying timeline based off of my experience, based off what I've seen in the past work for many years after helping hundreds of buyers in person and thousands of buyers here on YouTube. Just get a good idea of how to create your own timeline on your own without any interference. Cool? Take out a paper, take out a pencil. You're going to definitely need it. Any questions you might have, let's just wait till the very end to even leave them on the comment section. You can also join our Discord community where we have a lot of amazing people who are sharing all steps of their process with them, but we also have some people that have already bought that are great. And I'm also on there as well, and I can answer your question. So let's get the ball rolling, shall we? Okay, so first things first, there is one date that your entire timeline branches from, because everything is predictable as long as you have this one day in mind. Do you have any idea what it is? A lot of people think it's the day I decide to buy a house, or it's the day that I start house hunting, or the first time I walk into an open house. No, on the contrary, that day is going to be your closing date, or in more layman's terms, the day that you get the keys to the house, or possession, or close of escrow, whatever you want to call it. Now, this day is important because, like I said, there's two branches that come from this specific date that are very predictable, and we can work our way backward and a little bit forward to really set a good game plan of how the thing should look like. Honestly, the best way to show you is to let's do a real life example, just here on the spot, just as we're talking. So let's just say we're helping Jen, who's a first-time home buyer, buy a house, and the date that she selected is September 2024. She needs to have possession of her house by this month. Now, how she got to this is a few reasons. Like, there are people out there that are just in a very flexible situation that could move as soon as they're ready or they find the right house. And for you guys, maybe just watch the video first and get a good idea of the whole timeline. But for those that are the majority of people who are in a rental situation where they're currently renting, this is how you should work it about, and this is how Jen did it. A lot of you guys are tempted to make whatever, let's say your lease ends in September. A lot of people will say, well, that means I have to close by September. The problem with that, though, is you're relying on a few things. You're relying that there will be no problems with the escrow process or the buying process at all. You're relying that you're going to find your house really quickly and very effectively. And you're also relying on yourself to be able to move in the weekend or two, right? Give yourself the time and space to really enjoy this. I mean, it's not going to be enjoyable, but don't put yourself in a very stressful situation. So what you want to do is you want to schedule your closing to be at least a month or two before the lease end date. So let's say in this example, her lease ends in October 2024. Why is it a good idea to then close in September? Well, because you're giving a 4-week gap of any potential mistakes ever to happen, right? You want to make sure that if there is 1 or 2 weeks that are needed extra to make sure you get the better deal, or the seller might need it, or some kind of lending emergency, you'll have that time, and you won't have to be put in a position where you have to go ask your landlord after you've given your notice that you're leaving that you need an additional 2 weeks. So they're probably going to say no. So you're probably going to have to move everything to storage, and then you're going to have to find somewhere to live. And then once your house does close, you're going to move everything from storage to your new house, and it's going to be a pain in the butt. So just put yourself in a position where you close a month before. The second reason why this is a good idea is because there's a difference between the day you close versus your first month's payment. Let me explain. This right here, once again, is the day that you close, right? So we'll call this the close of escrow. Usually your first payment always falls 1 to 2 months after your closing date. So I'll explain why I mean 1 to 2 months. So if you close in September, your first payment will not be in October, it will be in November, right? So you should still have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to paying that first payment, and you're not going to be put in a situation where you're paying a double payment. So why I say it's either 1 or 2 months is because it really depends when you close. if you close the end of September, September 29th, 25th, whatever, let's say with the end of September, well, it's the same rule. You close, you don't pay a mortgage that month. You don't pay the mortgage the following month. You pay the mortgage the second month. Now, if you close September 1st, same rule applies. You're not paying a mortgage that month. You're not paying a mortgage the following month. You're paying a mortgage this next month, right? So basically, if you close in the beginning of the month, it feels like you're having a 2-month gap from your first payment. And if you close at the end of the month, it feels like you only have a 1-month gap. But there's one thing to note here, that the 2-month option seems very tempting, but your closing costs are going to be significantly higher because you're paying a per diem of interest for that month that you close. And that could add up to a few $1,000s more on your closing costs. So be aware, it's not just all mashed potatoes and gravy. I guess I'm hungry and I'm thinking about mashed potatoes and gravy. Funny enough, I've never met anybody that hasn't liked mashed potato and gravies, but my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, hates mashed potatoes and gravy. You know, surprisingly, the neighbor also hates mashed potato and gravy. Anyways, this is just a general idea of how Jen came up with September 2024, okay? So I'm gonna leave this up to kind of build the timeline out here. So we base it off September 2024. Now, from here, the past 3 events are gonna be very predictable. So on average, it takes between 30 to 45 days to close on a property. Nowadays, it's about 30 days. Unless you're in you have a very particular type of government loan or something specific like that, most people are closing about 30 days later. So here we're going to put August 2024 is when the house goes under contract, because once again, there's a 30-day period. Now, if you're interested in what happens in these 30 days, it's probably gonna take me another 10 to 20 minutes. So go watch this video after you're done, where I literally just break down what happens between the time that you get your offer accepted to it closed. I go much more in detail. So that video is there for you if you wanna check it out after. But honestly, try not to worry about those details quite yet until you're like actively engaged and looking. This is more to just help you create a timeline for yourself, if that makes sense. Okay, so now we know that we need to be going under contract by August 2024. So if we need to go under contract, before we go under contract, we need to be out house hunting. We need to be out looking for a house. On average, this is going to be shocking, but on average, if you're actively engaged in looking to buy a house and it's a somewhat normal market and you're not looking for something super particular, it takes like 2 to 4 weeks to find a house, even less sometimes. That sounds insane, I know, but it's just what I've seen. Just doing this for almost a decade. Or people are serious about buying it. Like, you're in that mindset of like, I'm buying a house with or without you, Javier. Like, if you're that kind of mindset, they buy within 2 to 4 weeks. Sometimes if you're in a little more particular situation, it could take 2 months. I have a client right now that's taking like 3 to 6 months because they're looking for something super specific. So obviously we're going to go for the more general vibes here. For you following at home and for you doing your own timeline, if you think you're going to be in a lot more pickier situation, or you just want to give yourself an extra month just to browse, then what you want to do is do 2 months before here. But for everybody else, I think a month and a half is more than enough. So July 2024 for Jen will be basically the time she starts house hunting. Why do I call it house hunting? I think it's like the word or the vocabulary that people use when they start searching for a house. I like to just call it, looking for a house, searching for a house. House hunting is just the term that's been used, probably because of double H. If you are not, don't call it that, then don't call it that. I'm just the verbiage I'm using. Okay, so that's when she needs to start house hunting, July 2024. Now, before you start house hunting, you need to get pre-qualified. If you have your ducks in a row and you are a strong buyer, which we'll talk about for the second half of the video, what it means to be a strong buyer, then it really only takes you a week or 2 to get your pre-qualification done. Even if you're going to do shopping around, you want to shop around as you look for houses. Get your initial pre-qualification and start looking for a house. While you're looking for a house, you can be contacting other lenders. That first time you do a pre-qualification, you want to just save all the documents you send them, so that way when you start a new application with a new lender, just send everything over. And you also want to keep a copy of all the loan estimates, keep a copy of the pre-qualification form, so when you talk to a lender, you say, by the way, this other lender gave me this rate, gave me these fees. This is just so you know what your competition is. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, but I want to make sure to reiterate here. You don't want to choose a lender you're going to work with here. You pick 3 or 4 lenders. You say, great, when I find the house, I'll let you know. And when you go under contract, you send all lenders the contract and you let them fight for your business. I had a crazy client of mine, Lucas, who like literally a week after closing, which I don't recommend you do. I recommend you make a decision pretty quickly. Had a lender fighting over his business 10 days after the offer gets accepted, he's like, okay, never mind, we're switching back to this lender. They ended up giving me an amazing deal, right? So keep them at it. Don't do that. Try to make a decision pretty quickly. But they make these lenders fight for you. So don't just go with who you're going to work with initially. Pick 3 or 4. You'll probably have a better idea of who you're going to work with. But even if the person you like is great and all, if they don't give you the best deal when you're under contract, then business is business, right? So anyways, it takes about 2 weeks for you to get pre-qualified once you're solid and you're ready to go. Working way backward, let's say call it June, maybe July. If you're like, maybe if it's like the end, you're gonna start looking at the end of July. You know what I mean? So maybe June, July 2024 is when you get pre-qualified. By the way, this is also a good time for you to do your shopping around with your real estate agent. You don't want to work with the first person that you just fall in love with. You want to talk to 2 or 3 agents just to get a good vibe of who's out there, who's going to be a better fit for you. So this is also when you will decide, you're building out your team here, right? So you choose who you're going to work with. Just put choose realtor, who you're going to work with, right? Basically. So this right here, this home buying timeline is what we call the whirlwind, right? A lot of people, they just like, oh, I'm going to look for a house because my buddy just bought a house and I want to do it. And the first thing they do is they call a realtor, they call a lender, and next thing you know, they're house hunting. Next thing you know, they're going under contract without even choosing or thinking about if it's a good decision to buy for them at that moment. They just get stuck in the whirlwind. So you really want to make sure before we get to this, before we figure this out, you want to do another timeline first. That is what I call, like, you know, if I'm thinking like a manga or an anime, you know, the main hero doesn't go and fight the big bad right away. There's just some development that happens. He has to get his or her butt kicked a few times. You know what I'm saying? So instead of character development, I'm going to say buyer development, buyer dev timeline that you need to do, and you need to have the diligence to take a step back and not get caught in the whirlwind, not go do open houses, not go call your agent and your lender. You do this first on your own to make sure that you're in a solid position. Once you have finished your buyer development, you are now considered a strong buyer. Buyer strong, boy. All right, all jokes aside, we'll put strong buyer, right? Once you're a strong buyer, then you move over to the home buying. Okay, so what does it mean to be a strong buyer? Well, let's break it down here. So really, it's a flexible timeline. The first thing you need to do is don't click away. Promise you won't click away after I say this, because you need to hear this. Frankly, I need to hear this. So I'm talking to myself, not just talking to you, because buying a house is hard. Buying a house is hard because you have to really reflect if you're ready, not only mentally, physically, but financially. And how you figure that out first is you have to have your budget set, right? Now, I don't care if you budgeted all your undies, budgeted your freaking Pokemon card collection. I have this computer that I spent a little bit too much money upgrading this last month, so I'm guilty of it too. But what I mean by having your budget set is you have a good idea. You have a good idea if you really buckle down how much money you can save per month for a goal. Like, I know if I really hunker down this month, or reliably most months, I don't go too much. I mean, you can go to Starbucks once in a while. Come on, because we're all. How do you not go to Starbucks? Come on. So like, you don't go every day. You only go once a week or something. If you really bunker down, you can save $2,000 a month. You can save $1,000 a month. So whatever that number is, your month saving number. Now you can have 2. You can have a like tight month, like it was a kind of a you spent a little too much money that month because there's birthdays and, you know, all kinds of stuff. Like the beginning of the year sucks butt for me because I just got done Christmas getting all these presents. Now I freaking have like 4 birthdays from my siblings. My wife's birthday is like after Valentine's Day, and basically now in that's beginning of March, I'm like Thanos, like sitting in this farm, like a Grateful Universe style, you know what I mean? So those last 3 months wouldn't be strong saving months for me. They would be like light saving months. So figure out my light saving months are $1,000. My strong saving months are $2,000. Now, why you need to know that is because this is how you can develop your buyer development timeline. So let's say in this example, Jennifer can save $1,000. We'll call it LSM, light savings month. $1,000 reliably, and if it's a really strong month, she can save like $3,000. So we'll call it a strong saving month, $3,000. Let's just kind of get an idea of that. Now, once we have that number, then we can really reliably figure out the timeline here. So, in my opinion, this is Hold on, let me put an arrow here. Just make it look nicer. There you go. Okay, bro. Cool. Now for this, we're going to start from the beginning to the end because I believe there are certain priorities you need to meet before you do anything. The 3 things you need to focus on to become, in my opinion, a strong buyer on your own without realtor help, without any help, is you need to have a strong savings situation. You need to have a strong credit score. And you need to be able to afford where you live, okay? Yeah, those are the 3 things that you need to have in mind to become a strong buyer. And I believe it's in this order. So let's start off with the first, savings. Now, when I'm talking about savings, a lot of people think, oh, you know, save my down payment, save my closing costs. Okay, so first, start off by doing this for me. Write down a piece of paper how much you have saved right now, like cash savings you have right now. For a lot of people, that might be 0. For a lot of people, that might be a few $1,000s, $10,000, all that. Great. Now, if I've watched my videos before, you know where I'm going with this, but for everybody else, just follow along. Okay, so you have that number. Now, right under it, put 3 categories: emergency funds, investments, house savings. That's right, there isn't just one savings number. There's 3 separate ones. A story I've told in the past is, I remember I was talking to a client, and I was like, how much do you have for a house? $40,000. Great. How much do you have in your emergency funds? $40,000. Oh, you have 80,000. That's great. No. He's like, no, I have 40K. That's everything. And I was like, okay, so you're going to use all that money just for the house? And I was like, no, don't tell anyone that you have $40,000 for a house again. Tell them you have 30,000. Off the bat, if you have a starter number, we need to allocate that first. And the first priority always is your emergency funds. Now, this is up to you to figure out what do you want. A lot of people like to say, well, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months reserves, whatever that case may be. Basically, what you do is you find your survival number, the number that you need to survive in a given month, and you multiply it by 3 if you want 3 months worth, 6 if you want 6 months worth, etc. A lot of people like to be loosey-goosey and say only 1 month or 2 months. Whatever that is for you, go for you, choose what you need to. I like the 3 to 6 months just because if like my leg gets broken now, I can probably figure it out in a month or 2 if what I'm going to do for another job. Probably can still do YouTube. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. So once you figure that number is, and keep in mind, you're saving not by your current situation, but what your monthly payment would be. So, you know, consider already having that $3,000 mortgage or whatever when you're considering finding your emergency funds. So let's say Jen's emergency fund number is $4,000. If she has $4,000 a month, she can survive. She can get by. So for her, she needs to save 3 months worth. So in her case, she needs to save at least $12,000 to start an emergency fund. So here what we're going to do is we're going to put emergency fund. We're going to put $12,000. And we'll get back to how we're going to work with these numbers then. Okay. Next is your retirement. If you haven't done this, you've been meaning to do this, now's your warning to do it. Now's your chance. Does your employer offer some kind of investment or IRA or whatever, or they'll match something and help you start a 401k, whatever that is? If you haven't done it, now's the time to do it. Honestly, your house shouldn't be your only investment. It's what I was taught. It's what most people I wasn't taught this. I guess by default, I just learned this because I was never taught how to invest my money. So when I bought a house and I made money off selling, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm a savvy investor. No, it's like your house is not your only investment, and you shouldn't look at that. And if your house is your only investment, it makes sense why you're so concerned about the market crashing. You should have some kind of retirement fund started. I don't care if it's even $1,000 or $2,000. You're like whatever a month's paycheck just to get started, or you just have some kind of fund started with your job. It doesn't matter. Have a goal of maybe even if it's $2,000, $3,000, get something started. And if you don't have anything at your employer, consider talking to a financial advisor and just starting something. And it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be huge. It could literally be starting with $100 a month. I don't care. But I don't want your house to be your only investment. So we want to make sure to have a retirement fund started. Retirement fund started. Now, for a lot of people, you go talk to a financial advisor, I guess would be doing that. You might not even need that much to get started. You might need like $1,000 or $2,000 or even $3,000 or $5,000. So let's say in this case, a Jen needs at least $3,000 to get her retirement fund started. Then that's going to be the number she saves. You don't have to have a massive amount before you buy a house. I just want you to think, and not just think of your house as the only investment you're going to have. The next fund that you need to worry about after you've saved these things is your actual housing fund. This is what you actually are going to use to buy a house. So this, just so you, for those watching this still, this is going to be the first part of this week. I'm focusing on videos on how to prepare to buy a house. My next video will be about the cost of buying a house, and I'll go into really deep analysis of how to calculate that. But just kind of top of the head, if you're a first-time home buyer, your down payment is going to be probably between 3 to 5%. Let's just assume 5 on the high end. And your closing costs will be 2 to 3%. So let's assume 3% on the high end. So a quick way of just figuring out how much money you need, let's say 8% plus another percentage for fees like inspection and stuff like that. So let's just say 8 to 10%. So if you're buying a $400,000 house, you calculate, 8% of that, 32K is what you need, right? Just a rough thing. Now, it could be a lot less if you're using down payment assistance, or if you're going FHA, you shave 2 points off of that because FHA is a down payment. But for now, we can just use that as a general idea, right? So like if you're going FHA, that's 3.5% down instead of 5, and then let's add another, like, I don't know, $8,000 for the closing costs, so like 22K. So it really ranges. So we can say it's as low as 6% to 10%, wherever the range is. Watch that video next if you wanted to get a really good idea of how to do that. But so for now, let's just assume, let's go with $30,000 as a good safe number. Now the thing is, as you're developing your funds, you'll still be making payments to your credit, right? So this is interchangeable. So I'm going to have this like right here, because really it could be happening at the same time as you're saving your money. So I'm not going to go into depth about how you should pay off your credit and what you need to do. Quite frankly, I do have something to plug about this, but this video isn't about plugging myself to make a gain. I want you guys to go do your own independent research. There's a lot of great content creators out there that you can learn a lot from. Don't go pay for any service where you're going to be paying money for someone to coach you on how to work your credit. Everything is out there. If you're teaching yourself about the timeline of buying a house, you can teach yourself how to work on your credit. Please, oh please, go do your due diligence. Don't pay anyone for any credit repair. That being said, in my opinion, how I've seen people fix your credit is having manageable credit balances. Like if you're at max balance limits and your limit's like 10,000, your balance is 10,000, your credit's probably tanking. But when people relatively stay around like 30% is what I've seen. So like if you have a $10,000 limit and you have a balance of about $3,000, your credit shouldn't be taking that bad, right? So I don't think the goal when you're preparing to buy a house is to be completely debt free. I think that's something you work on after you've owned your home, because I think having a strong credit really helps you when you're buying a house. You have stronger consideration of lower rates, strong consideration of a lot of things. So here, what I want you to do for any credit cards is find out what 30% of their limit is. So let's say Jen has 2 credit cards. Both of them are $5,000 and she has it maxed out. 30% of 5,000 is $1,500, okay? So basically for her both cards, she needs to find a way to pay off $3,500 each card. So she has to find a way to get extra $7,000, right? So she can get those credit cards to a reasonable balance. Now, why I say is this happening at the same time, because Jen may already be at a good credit score, right? You may not need the credit repair while you're developing it, but you could definitely benefit from any kind of major credit boost. Honestly, if you're going FHA, you only need to be at a 600. If you're going conventional, if you're in the 700s, you're solid. Anything else, if you're in the 500s, yeah, you need to focus on and definitely make prioritizing paying off your cards. If you're in the 600s, you're trying to go conventional, you need to prioritize this. But for everybody else, if you're actively working on getting to the 30% balances while you're saving your funds, I think you're making pretty good progress here. So for Jen's sake, she is working on paying at least, what is that, $7,000, just to at least start working, getting those things down, right, while this is happening. Now that we have an idea of this, and this is good, this is why we found this number out. Let's say Jen is starting from 0. Like she's going to focus on like, I'm going to really start saving and get my stuff together. Okay, great. She's going to do $3,000 a month at least. Well, we can start calculating some things here. So we know for a fact that if she really saves $3,000 a month, this is going to take her about 4 months to get done. Well, it should take her at a rate of $3,000 a month about 4 months to get to here. Now, we move on to the next thing. She needs $3,000 for a retirement fund. Well, that's going to take only about 1 month. And her housing fund is the one that's going to take the longest. Well, we have an idea of what that is. So it'll take her approximately 10 months to save And if she wants to focus on paying her credit balances down, maybe she doesn't need to apply. Maybe there's a few months where she applies a little bit extra. She kind of makes it work in her favor. Or if she really just completely snowballs it and like really puts all of her energy and effort in it, that'll take her about 2.5 months to pay off. Right. So here we can tell she's about a year and a half ish of actually saving all that money and becoming a strong buyer. Now, a lot of people don't start at zero. She might already have like $10,000. So this turns into 1 month. I mean, she already probably started a retirement fund under work, so maybe she doesn't need the month there, and she can get straight into saving for a house. And now she's like 6 to 9 months before she can buy it. But the point is she's doing all this work beforehand, right? A lot of people go to their agent, go to the lender and say, Sensei, please tell me what to do. And they'll be like, bro, just go with down payment assistance program. You can buy a house. You don't need that much money. You're zero down. Now you're in a house, but you got no emergency fund. And God forbid, an emergency happens with your family member and all your money goes out. And now you're put in a crappy position. Now you're getting foreclosed on, being short sold. No one's telling you this, folks. They don't care that much about you. They want to just sell you a house. Okay, so do the work. Do all this information, have the patience to actually delay gratification. You will own a home. You could do it eventually, but now this market isn't that favorable anymore for investment purposes. Back then, 10 years ago, people would buy a house and they were barely getting by. They sell it 3 years later, they make a ton of money. There was very low stakes. It was anything. It was like freaking real estate for dummies. Everyone and their mother made so much money the last decade. And quite frankly, real estate is now a terrible investment. You don't have the luxury of being able to just sell when things get too hard and make a bunch of money. You will have to stay in your real house long term, and you're doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it because your why is so strong that you want a house and you're going to get it. Well, that's great, but you still have to do the work to make sure that this is solid. Now, while this is being worked on, affordability is another topic that I've talked about a lot. And here, this is not really in the timeline per se. This is just more awareness. Can you afford where you live? Quick off the bat, you need to be about 30%, 25% of your net income for your mortgage payment or your monthly payment. Sorry. If you live in an area where that's not possible, you have 3 options. You continue to rent, you wait for a market crash, or you move. That's just how it is. You're going to have a year and a half to really think about it, but that's just how things are. And my heart goes out to all you Californians and New Yorkers and people on the East Coast who are in a terrible spot and they can't buy because they love living near a city, the city. They love living near it so much, and they can't in their little hearts say, I can't leave here. I just love it so much. I get it. Listen, if my wife and I didn't have any kids, we'd be in downtown Phoenix right now, going and eating at the coolest bars and eating the coolest foods and being the coolest cats in town. But we probably wouldn't be homeowners because it's so expensive. We probably would be renting. We would be happy renting, yes, because we love living downtown. But you have priorities in life, right? People that are buying because they have a strong desire to own a home. If your desire to be near the city or in the city or in a city that's just so expensive, but you're happy, then that desire, it's okay to say that desire is stronger than your need to own a home, right? But for a lot of people, if that need to own a home is a lot higher than living near a popular city, then you need to strongly consider moving to somewhere where you can actually afford where you live. I don't care what kind of money you make, there is somewhere in this country where you can afford to live, and that is a terrible take because a lot of people are like, well, go to Ohio. I get it. It sucks. You have to leave your family and friends behind. Well, then in that case, you're watching this video to help develop your emergency fund, retirement fund, housing fund, or whatever. Still do it, but do it because you're hoping that something severe happens to the market, that your city will now be affordable, right? But even if the massive market calamity happens, you still want to develop yourself to be a strong buyer so you're ready to strike when the iron is hot. Basically, all in all, that's how you develop it. Once you've done this and you've taken the time, like you can even, if you want to work your way back from June, so then like 10 months would be what, like August of 20. Oh, I just realized I put 2021. Why don't you guys tell me anything? You guys probably saw the whole video with me saying 20. Poor editor had to do that. You probably didn't even notice because he had to put like a little 4 or something after. So JB, thank you so much for doing that. Round of applause for JB. Everyone else, you can work your way backwards. So this would be like what, August to 2023, then July 20. Yeah, you can work your way backward from that point on if you want to really get a good timeline. But it's really important that we don't forget the blue. We have to just make sure to become a strong buyer first before you get caught in the whirlwind of the actual timeline. So I hope this video really helps. My next video in this series will be talking about the cost. If you found value in this video, it would mean a lot to me if you share with someone that also is buying, or you just, like and subscribe, or leave a comment, do whatever you can to help the algorithm. I really appreciate it. YouTube thinks you should watch this video next, so go check it out, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.